Hello everyone, I'm JP Gellerman with UF IFAS Extension Pinellas County. Today we would like to introduce you to 3 sites around Pinellas County that have implemented green infrastructure techniques to improve stormwater management and enhance the aesthetics of our landscape. Please join Eben Bean with IFAS Extension and Ali Riemann with Pinellas County Public Works as they tour these sites to show us the benefits of green infrastructure.
Hi, I'm Dr. Eben Bean from University of Florida IFAS Ag and Biological Engineering, focused on urban water resources, and today with me is Ali Riemann from Pinellas County Public Works. Ali, we're standing in front of this beautiful rain garden here.
So we're in Crest Lake Park in the city of Clearwater. They have really renovated this park and incorporated a lot of stormwater features to capture and treat rainfall. And they have bioswales, a beautiful stormwater pond, and rain gardens. And so they've really utilized rain gardens to again treat that runoff and nutrients. And so right behind us is a great example of what one could look like, as well as different plants that can be incorporated into these types of systems.
Yeah, this is a great opportunity whenever you have redevelopment to go back and incorporate with the opportunities that you have, incorporate green infrastructure into the landscape. This is a great example of a rain garden, and if you're not familiar with rain gardens, they're usually just sort of like these depressional areas in the landscape that fill with water for maybe 24 hours, 48 hours maybe, and then that water infiltrates into the ground below. They can do a lot as far as capturing that, filtering it, and reducing the amount of runoff from a source area. So it's really great to see this. You can see there's like a diversity of plants here. It also helps support the habitat for pollinators, for small animals and so forth in the park area. So rain gardens are such a great piece of integrating stormwater management into the urban landscape.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I know plant selection is a big proponent of these projects. You can see up on the top you have more of your terrestrial type plants, you have your muhly grasses and some firebush, and as you go deeper into the rain garden, that's where you start to incorporate those plants that like their feet wet, getting into some more of those aquatics. So this is a great opportunity to enhance the habitat of an urban space by bringing in a diversity of plants. You can also bring in like aesthetics, because the planting styles or the planting characteristics can vary so much. There's lots of options, so you can think about colors that you want to have in here and really make it become sort of an aesthetic aspect to the urban area. Yeah, absolutely. And you can see the city of Clearwater absolutely did that by incorporating the different colors and textures here, where really our eye is met with a lot of detail to look at and really soaking it all in. I wanted to talk a little bit probably about those first few years as being the most important time to getting plants established, and what you need, like mulch, and how you are going to be weeding out in those first few years so that at least these plants can start to take over the area. Yeah,
that's such a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. So when we buy plants and put them in the ground, they usually are pretty small, and it's really important to, when you're thinking about spacing, to consider how big the full-grown plant will be.
Right.
And also in establishment early on, there may need to be some temporary irrigation just for establishment. We're not looking to do permanent in-ground irrigation because these plants should be able to survive on the natural rainfall and runoff that comes in there. But there may be sort of an early on, the first year or two before that happens, you may need to do some additional weeding to kind of pull out some of those plants that are just kind of coming up between the gaps that haven't filled in yet. But as you get into like year 3, 4, and 5, that should become really just a minimal aspect of the maintenance.
So we can really see that maintenance cost kind of heavy up front, but really starting to decrease over time.
You got it. These almost become self-sustaining, and sort of if for example one small plant kind of suffers or dies, then it kind of gets refilled by the other plants that are around it and kind of fill in that space. You also mentioned mulch. Mulch is a really important aspect in the bottom of these rain gardens, because they help to, number one, mulch actually filters some of the metals. They're really effective at removing metals from stormwater runoff. But also it helps to maintain moisture in that soil, so that it helps for some of the other biological processes and pollutant removal processes to go on in the soil. And it helps to provide additional moisture to the plants that are taking up those pollutants.
Cool. So well, I think we should try to get down and see what else they have going on inside this rain garden.
Let's do it.
All right. speaking of maintenance, I did just want to ask you, what do you think the maintenance is like on something like this overflow?
Yeah, so it would be on a regular basis, just kind of making sure that it's not blocked. So this is a good example. We have a little bit of vegetation that's starting to overgrow. It's not at a place where it's really obstructing the flow. Obviously, we had a lot of water come through here, and we don't see any water standing here, so it's not creating an issue. But this is probably something we would want to trim back and just make sure that this vegetation keeps this overflow clear. Right. So any infrastructure that is designed to convey stormwater needs to regularly be checked, just kind of an eye inspection, to make sure that water can still flow through at its design capacity in case we get those large storms.
Well, do you want to go check out a couple more of the green infrastructure aspects?
I'd love to see more.
All right, let's go. This is assumingly Crest Lake, which is the focal point of this park. There's about a mile of trail that loops around this. What can you tell us about maybe some of this vegetation and how that benefits this water body?
Yeah, so if you see kind of right in front of us, there's very kind of minimal vegetation. It's actually one of the few places around this pond that doesn't have a really dense vegetation. And then right behind us, this vegetation here on the left is really full and lush. What's going on here is this is going to do a much better job when we have like wind that blows across the lake at protecting the bank from erosion. We can have, for example, when we have on stormwater ponds grass that goes down to the edge and you have sort of a steep bank, those banks are really susceptible to like wind fetch or wind blowing across the lake and having like constant wave energy blowing against that turf or that sand or that sediment and washing it out, and it slowly erodes the bank. That does two things. One, depending on where the soil's from, it can release nutrients and phosphorus into the pond, which can contribute to more algal issues that you might have.
Yeah, I think in a lot of neighborhoods when I see the stormwater ponds, like you said, it's grass right up into the edge, and they have somebody coming out maybe even a couple times a month to kind of mow to that edge and weed whack. I think the worry is the cost of maintenance of vegetation, but it looks like once this wiregrass has been established, it's thick and it's sturdy and it's really taking up a lot of that bank.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to run a mower or trimmer through this at all. It kind of self-sustains. It gets to its full growth stage and blocks out other weeds. There's probably some selective maintenance and pulling of certain plants that you see kind of popping up, but that's like a once a month maybe for a few minutes, just pulling those selected plants. But otherwise, the maintenance on these vegetative buffers is pretty minimal.
What sort of benefits does a water feature have on this type of water body?
Well, we love looking at fountains, right?
Love it.
The beautiful accent to the center of the pond, but it also can provide some water quality benefits. The fountain helps the water to continue to move around, so you don't get the accumulation of algae into mats as much, and it also adds oxygen to the water and helps the overall water within the pond stay mixed and circulated, so you don't have these sort of zones of low oxygen in the pond or other issues with the stagnant water that can occur. It seems like Clearwater has done a fantastic job with retrofitting it, improving the water quality while also enhancing the public's experience in this public space.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the amount of trees that have been incorporated and even left from the previous iteration really provides a refuge in the summer and during those hot days for residents to come and enjoy some shady, cool spots with their family. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, trees, they intercept rainfall and they shade us. I mean, you get multiple benefits, so it's great.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for meeting us out here and talking about some of these features.
Absolutely. Hey, Allie.
Hey, Evan, how's it going?
It's going great. This is fantastic porous concrete. This is an amazing site.
It really is.
This looks like it's almost brand new. Like there's not a lot of sediment that's in the pores. It looks really clean. And I imagine with the rain we had yesterday that there was almost no runoff from this porous concrete.
Really, that's amazing.
It's a really incredible utility for managing stormwater runoff. I don't know how much you know about it, but underneath here, there's probably about 4 inches of the porous concrete. And then depending on how porous concrete is installed and used and designed, there might be 8, 10, 12 inches of stone underneath that has a lot of pore space. Water goes really quickly through this porous concrete and fills up that pore space and then soaks into the ground around it. So basically the highest rainfall rate you can think of would go right into this. Go through really quickly into that pavement.
Oh wow, yeah, look at that. Doesn't take any time at all.
Yep, and this is, the amount that I'm putting onto the pavement here is far higher than what any rainfall rate would be, and so it really has to be super clogged to not infiltrate water.
Wow, that's awesome, Evan.
Yeah. The great thing about permeable pavement is that if we take care of it and maintain it, we can infiltrate a lot of water through it. So, for example, here we have the entire walkway is covered with permeable pavement. Great installation. But let's say, for example, you needed a section that's just impervious or conventional pavement, maybe for the rollerbladers or the skateboarders.
Yeah.
You could still get the same functionality out of this system even with half of that surface being impervious. And the reason is that, I just poured all that water on the surface, it's gone. The runoff from that, let's say half of the walkway goes onto the pervious concrete. The infiltration rate of pervious concrete is faster than any rainfall rate that we could ever have if we're taking care of it and cleaning it. Once it goes through the pavement, if there's storage underneath that concrete or the typical section, then that volume is still available. So essentially, if that water can get through the porous concrete that's only half, then it has all of that volume below and it functions just the same.
So if we have a split trail with half conventional concrete and half permeable pavement, that concrete runoff can still infiltrate through this material.
Trying to put this on broader implementations, like in parking lots. One of the great things is that we have to keep in mind is maintenance. With a parking lot, the drive paths, if we keep those permeable, we can have the parking stalls be impermeable. And I recommend that because the drive paths are always open. You don't have to worry about shutting down parking spaces to do the maintenance. So it's a real benefit. I'd like to welcome today Mr. Derry Jackson here at the iconic Bill Jackson's store. Thank you for joining me today, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. We're here because, coming into this spot, it was quite an experience. This is unlike any other parking lot at a commercial store that I've been to in a long time. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how it got to be like this with so many trees.
We started in 1946. We moved here in 76, and my parents love trees. We all love trees.
Yeah.
My mom would stand in front of a pine tree, her foot like this, her arm crossed, the front end loader would come up to her toe. She stood there in defiance. Don't get close to my tree.
Well, the layout here seems to work pretty well. I mean, you've got a great mixture of areas that are preserved. It wasn't clear cut, and you've got plenty of parking and able to kind of drive around for the capacity. What was it like getting this installed or getting it passed and so forth? Approved.
We thought it was going to be hard to start with.
Okay.
Pinellas Park was wonderful. They finally said, you don't really need the parking spaces you need for the store. You have the room, but you got to cut down trees. We don't want to cut down trees. They said, you just show me on a site plan how you can put parking if you need parking in the future. And it was just wonderful working with the city. So I would encourage cities to consider that. I know if other cities it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, that's a common thing. I mean, I was expecting for a commercial site to come in here, have it clear cut, a lot more parking spaces that are empty and rarely used. That's sort of a common thing in a lot of our codes in Florida, this minimum parking requirements. But it sounds like, from the owner's standpoint, one of the steps you took was asking for a variance and having a good justification. And some of the communities will be willing to grant that. I mean, it looks fantastic here. I mean, you're sort of a nature store, and you're kind of preserving the nature around here too. What's the maintenance like on the trees that are here? I mean, they're old trees. Do you have any problems with them? Is it something that you have to stay on top of at all?
We do.
Okay.
We used to send a crew out twice a month.
Okay.
So we'll take a crew of 6 of us.
Yeah.
But a few years ago, one of our good customers goes, hey, I need a job. And we pretty much hired Earl to work outside.
Okay.
And he's made life easier for us. We can stay inside, do the stuff we need to. I kind of miss working outside. I still go out and I'll still take my pruners out there and cut, you know.
Yeah.
I have a great picture of my dad when he was 90 years old with his walker like this. And he had pruners out there cutting a pepper tree, you know.
Yeah.
But it's fun doing it though.
Is most of it kind of just trimming back bushes and branches to keep the drive path and the parking spaces open?
It is. We also are concerned with all the pine needles because of fire. We've had a few fires in the woods, and now that we have less pine needles, we've done a good job just raking them up. It makes them much, much safer.
But it sounds like it's a lot less intensive than if you were to have to mow all of this on a weekly basis or something to keep it looking that way.
Right, and it just looks beautiful. I mean, it's a pleasure. I love coming in every day, and you'll see rabbits and animals going through
No
the
kidding.
parking lot when we get here in the morning.
Well, you don't see that in your typical big box parking lot, that's for sure.
You do.
And just, I don't know if you see this, but I mean, we oftentimes don't realize how much a role that trees and this vegetation plays with capturing and intercepting rainfall. Even pine trees, they capture some rain that could make it to the ground, but it doesn't. It just kind of stays up there and evaporates. And these low spots that have the native soils there, I bet they just kind of soak up the water. Do you have any standing water issues here in the outside of the impervious area, the drive path?
For a few hours after rain, we do.
Okay.
But next day, it's gone, you know.
All within a day, right? So you don't have any standing water issues.
We don't with pine trees, as you know.
Yeah.
We can't have standing water with pine trees anyway.
Absolutely. They don't like that. They don't grow in those areas.
Oak trees love it, but pines don't.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Jackson, thank you so much for joining us and telling us a little bit about this site. It's beautiful, it's lovely, and if you get a chance to come by, I recommend stopping by and checking out Bill Jackson's store as well as the unique parking lot here.